right, here we are. Finally, we are back. Me and Ev, Debert and Black, back to do another season of Puck Dynasty. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing pretty good, actually. Pretty good. Good to see you. Good to be doing this
Pretty
back
good.
again. We got to figure out these
man, I'm
mics and how
excited.
they
We've
work
got-
and, work out all the kinks to start the season off. A little preseason.
That's right. It's been a kinky kind of couple minutes trying to get these things rolling. Hopefully, we can have a smooth episode from here on out. We're just going to dive right in. We're not going to talk about the Oilers. We're not going to talk about the playoff run. We're not going to talk about what I called for last year on the trade deadline. None of that stuff. We are going to dive right into our top 50 prospects. The drafted prospects is what we're talking about. We are going to lead off today with some of our misses. I know it's a terrible way to go, but I believe in being honest and forthcoming, and we missed a few guys last year. So real quick, I'm just going to rip off who our top 50 was last year. This time last year, our top 50 went a little something like this. Connor Bedard, Fantilli, Brant Clark, Luke Hughes, Matvei Michkov, Leo Carlson, Logan Cooley, Will Smith, Lane Hudson, Ryan Leonard, Olin Zellweger, Minty Yukov, Devin Levi. We were doing good up until that point. Lucas Reichel, we're crashing and burning now. Cutter Gauthier, like that one. David Juracek, Jesper Wallstead, Simon Edvinson, Logan Stankoven, Alexander Nikishin, Dustin Wolf, Askarov, Korchinski, Benson, Eklund. That's the halfway point of our old list. Matthew Nyes, Dvorsky, Snuggerud, Kulich, Slavkovsky, Coronado, Genther, Nazar, Wood, Savoy, Casper, Scott Morrow, Kemmel, Musty, Holtz, Wright, Reinbacher, Ridley, Greg, Ivan Miroshchenko, Simon Nemec, Tyson Forrester, Dylan Holloway, Fabian Lysell, and Maverick Bork. That was our top 50. Now, obviously, there's some guys who should have probably been a little bit higher and a little bit lower there. That's not what we're talking about. We could justify why guys were where they were for the most part, but here are the guys we think we whiffed on. You want to go first or should I?
You can rock and roll first.
All right, Brock Faber.
Yeah.
Nowhere on our list was the runner-up for the Calder Trophy. Heck of a season from Brock. In our defense, he had done nothing to that point to indicate that he was a 50 to 60 point, $8.9 million defense. Certainly not a fantasy aspect, but here we are. We missed him. We're sorry. We'll try not to do it again this year. Next up, Marco Rossi. If I recall correctly, we did talk about Rossi or almost have him on the list. Is that right?
Yeah, well, he was on the decline. It was hard to distinguish kind of where he was sitting as a prospect. It didn't look like he was fitting in the Minnesota system. Excuse me. And then he took the bull by the horns this year and really took his game to the next level with the Wild too, which was great.
Absolutely. Another guy who we missed entirely was Shane Doan's kid, Josh Doan. Limited sample size, very small sample size, but he really was lights out in his brief time in the franchise formerly known as the Arizona Coyotes last year.
Yeah, I think with that guy, he's the bull that won't stop. So he played at Arizona State, which isn't the highest acclaimed hockey school, and although he had a great couple seasons there, still second rounder. You still didn't quite know what you had in him, but in the AHL time, he was great, and then his call up, he was exceptional.
Yeah, you and I talked about this a bit. He had 9 points in 11 games played with very little power play time. He was a +6 in those 11 games. I do not see him maintaining that pace at all. I think that, you'll be lucky to get 0.5, 0.6 points per game out of him this year, but he was certainly worth rostering last year. And then the last guy on our list is Dylan Genther. We had him at 32 last year. Obviously, if he was on our list this year, he'd be a lot higher than that because he looked fantastic for the Coyotes. He put up a whopping 35 points in 45 games, 18 of those goals. Was only a -1 and was also just about point per game in the AHL. So he possibly should have been a little bit higher than we had him. But other than that, I'm pretty happy with our list. Lucas Reichel, it was a
Yeah.
miss. I'm sure on my list this year, I've got a couple of Hawks higher than they should be just because I want to have Bedard's future line mates.
You
So,
gotta take swings in those scenarios.
anything to add to that list?
Just like you said with Gunther, it was at the time when we were making the list, he had gone back to the WHL. He didn't have what you thought would be the stat line in the dub playing with Seattle and through the Memorial Cup. So he was sitting right about where I think he should have been slated with what his trajectory was looking like. But in Arizona, he was given a lot of power play one time. He actually took Cooley's spot on that power play for a good chunk at the end of the year. And so, but yeah, he showed that great one-timer, great skill, great goal scorer.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if he's not on the PP in Arizona this year. Our biggest whiffs, in my opinion, guys we thought should be on the list that probably, won't be on the list this year. Marco Kasper, Holtz, and Miroshchenko are the guys I have. You want to contribute anything there, or are you happy with the rest of it? Oh, and obviously Lucas Reichel. But
yeah, Reichel was a tough one. Who else did we whiff, or did we whiff off on there? Scott Morrow. He's one that's kind of like, we'll see. It's going to be a dogfight for quality ice time in Carolina, but yeah, besides that, like Ryan Backer, you never know what his role is going to be with Montreal too. But we had him at like
Matthew Wood.
49.
You want to talk about Matthew Wood?
This is a big season for Matthew Wood coming up here. Transferring schools, going to the Golden Gophers. It'll be interesting how his usage will be used because his power play spot is where Jimmy Snuggerud is sitting with the Gophers. But much better school. He still led his team in scoring last year, so I still got faith in him. It's going to be a dogfight for that right wing spot in Nashville when Nyquist moves on from them. But
there you go. All right, well, let's get going. So the way this list is being formulated, I have my top 50. Debert has his top 50. We're going to duke it out. I don't see a whole lot of disagreement coming in the top 25, but I assure you there will be some back and forth on some of these guys. I might call him a nasty Avs fan. He might call me a stupid Oilers fan. We'll see how it goes, but let's kick it off. Number 1 on the Puck Dynasty top 50 prospect list, I'm going to go ahead and say Macklin Celebrini.
agreed.
All right. That was easy. Here's my rationale. I'm sure you agree. He doesn't play for Tortorella. San Jose has nothing to lose and no reason to win. He's going to have a lot longer leash. I like his line mates better than I necessarily like what Michkov has going. And I think ceiling-wise, in a vacuum, I'd probably take Michkov, but due to their situations, Celebrini takes my top spot. Anything to add there, pal?
For me, when I was thinking about this one, and I've been tossing it around in my head, and like, remember when Jerry was thinking about whether to keep doing the voice, hello, or still seeing the girl. So I was just like, Michkov, Celebrini, and you look confused. It's a Seinfeld episode. But yeah, I went...
No, I got it.
Okay, all right. I went with Celebrini because I find his game is more translatable at this point in time. Being able to do what he did in college, which we haven't really seen maybe since like Paul Correa days, as an underager, and just being center, being the quality of line mates that he's going to have coming up in San Jose with Smith, Eklund, Musty, and then more draft picks coming. And with Michkov, love the guy, super creative, really unique player, coming from the K over to the NHL. We'll see how that goes, and it's just the temperament of him is there's still a little bit there that leaves a little bit to be questioned.
His temperament?
Just how he reacts with his coaching and with defensive responsibilities and all that. Just the rumors that we've heard over the last couple seasons.
Well, I'll say this about the rumors. Today's Thursday, September 12th. Tomorrow is the first day of the rookie tournaments. Did you see what Michkov did in scrimmage today in front of John Tortorella?
Yeah, he tried the Michigan, of course.
He tried a Michigan, and Tortorella didn't kill him. And apparently the whole coaching staff, he looked back at them and they were all laughing directly at Tortorella. So maybe we'll see a new leaf turned over. And maybe he'll give him some leeway. Anyways, we agree on Celebrini at 1. I think we've more or less covered who our number 2 is, Michkov. Like I said, I do think that Michkov possibly has. If I had to take maximum upside, I take Michkov, but Celebrini is just in a much better position to help your team now. And I think we're probably talking about the difference between a 95-point player and a 110-point player, and it's just a matter of when they reach those heights.
For me, this is like Jack Hughes versus Panarin Kaprizov type of thing. It's like take your pick on what you want, really. But the center, but for fantasy upside, I just see Macklin as like a potential 50-50 guy. Same with Michkov. They could both. It's 1A, 1B, really.
Yeah, it's real close. Who you got at 3, buddy?
I got Will Smith from San Jose.
Oh no, we're fighting already.
Oh no! Well, I figured it would happen.
Will Smith. Did you? Will Smith is number 3, 4, 5, number 6 on my list. Who do you think I have at 3?
Let's see. Let me look at my list here. You could have went with, I don't know. Did you go Brant Clark?
I did not. I went with Ivan Demidov, and although he is currently riding the 4th line in the KHL, his upside to me is right there with Michkov.
See, I got Demidov 4.
Interesting that we're
and I did contemplate between the two. For Smith over Demidov for me was, I think they'll both have a very similar path towards the NHL. The first season or two might be a little rough figuring some things out. I don't know if they're going to keep Smith at center this year, so they might start him at wing. But similar players, but I did have Demidov at 4. Now, what do you have for over Smith? So it's like similar scenarios. Looking at second line, first power play on both San Jose, Montreal.
Yeah, they're both in great situations for sure going forward. To be honest, it has been the KHL preseason that has me putting Demidov ahead of Smith. At this point being 3 months after he was drafted, I think Demidov's a more impressive player than Smith was when he started his university career. And, he's got a year to catch up to where Smith is now. So for me, it's kind of the mystery box. I think that Demidov at this point next year will be a better player than Smith is right now. They're both mega talented. I just think Demidov, his skating style is hypnotic. The way he just seems to kind of do what he wants out there is something. I mean, I'm of the opinion that Michkov and Demidov might just be 5 points apart going forward, fantasy wise. So that's why I have Demidov at 3. Being that you have Smith at 4 and I have him at 6, and you have Demidov 1 spot lower, why don't we just go ahead and agree Demidov goes at 3 for now? I like that spot for him.
Sure, whatever you say.
And I'm the one doing the typing. So at the end of the day,
sound like I had as
much as it matters what you think.
Those guys. Like I said, they're close. I love Demidov too a lot. I agree that Smith to start the season last year, he did look a bit sluggish and a bit lost. But as the season went on, it's hard. He leading scorer in college, and
well, here's another question for you. Will Smith is a center, so what if they want to keep him as a center? Now you're talking about opportunity. Who's getting the line mates? Demidov is going to be sort of unchallenged on that top line in Montreal, whereas Smith might be stapled to line two. You might be the Forsberg to the Sakic. Sorry, there's a plane flying over my head right now. Give it a
Okay,
just a sec. I'm gonna
so
close this window when I
so
can.
what? But with Demidov in Montreal, do you think that Montreal will break up that top line?
I think that they'll play with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not. They have such good. Montreal is. I mean, we can talk about Montreal right now, but they also have the either most or second most top 2 round picks in the next 3 years. They're adding a bunch of talent too. So who knows
They're gonna
what
run
it's
out of
going to look
space.
like? I
They're
just
gonna be like Buffalo. They're just gonna run out of space for all these players.
yeah, they are going to run out of space for sure. I think
I could see Montreal.
I think Demidov will be the staple.
I could see Montreal doing, because they have those 4 elite forwards there. They could match Demidov with Caulfield and whoever they slot in long term at that second line center. Maybe Hag, maybe Doc picks it up together, and then put Suzuki with Slav, and then a free agent signing at the top line.
Yeah, it could end up as anything for sure. Ultimately, if I had to pick Demidov or Smith, I would take Demidov. That would be my pick right
Let's
now.
do it.
So
Let's do it. I love Demidov too. Let's
it's
go.
tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's do that.
And those Montreal
Number
mashup videos, those are so sweet. Did you see those? Where they had Demidov making passes to Caulfield and they mashed them up in the same play.
Oh, really? Was it AI?
No, I think someone just edited it to make it look.
Someone actually put it
brilliant.
together.
Was
Interesting.
it was really good.
Yeah, that'll be fun to watch. At 4, I have Clark, but I am happy to. My next 3 guys are all kind of tied. So let's put Will Smith at number 4 since we were just talking about him. I like him there. I love the potential of that San Jose power play. I do like Will Smith a lot as a player. The other thing that we talked about a lot last year is what can Will Smith do away from Ryan Leonard? You know,
It's true.
he's been playing with the same guys forever. I'm sure he'll be fine, but he does have questions to answer this year for me. We'll see where he ends up, but yeah, 4 is a good spot for him.
The way San Jose is
who you got at 5?
Forget we talked enough about San Jose. I got Brant Clark, number 5.
Okay, we agree.
Yeah, I think he's a
So
slam.
the top
slam
defenseman
dunk.
on our
Yeah.
list. The top defenseman on the Puck Dynasty list is Brant Clark. Why don't you kick us off here? Because you know I love the guy. Why don't you go ahead?
Well, outside of having like a phenomenal OHL season in his 19-year-old year, he comes in and is almost a point per game up to Christmas in the AHL the following season, and then he gets a cup of coffee in the NHL. Great first goal on that breakaway coming out of the penalty box.
Overtime winner, yeah.
And but yeah, just the sublime skill set of just like this pond hockey type of roving defenseman. It's the things he's able to do. Like he's gonna have to tone down some of these things that he tries, but as he starts to learn the angles and everything like that, and the roadblocks just don't exist in LA. And they have a great gatekeeper for him with Drew Doughty, like one of the best gatekeepers and a guy to learn from on how to run a power play too. So yeah, he's going to slide right in there when Doughty starts to take a step back, and LA is going to be competing for a long time. Them moving that Dubois contract, freeing up cap space, helped a lot. Yeah, so
Yeah, I agree with all that. We had this conversation last year. I thought that the Kings would be a little more reserved with Doughty's ice time, and that Clark could see at least 50% power play time, just kind of trying to keep Doughty fresh for the playoffs. They did not do that.
well,
I saw a lot of Doughty in round 1, and I will say that they would have benefited from not playing Drew Doughty 25 minutes a game. So I'm saying it again this year. Brant Clark deserves a shot. They're better off giving Brant Clark a shot. And they'll be a better team if he is up to speed for the playoffs when they are inevitably going to play the Oilers in round one again.
Yeah, you do have to take
So-
your time with offensive defensemen, though. You can't throw them to the wolves.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And where you were last year, you did have Brant Clark on your team, so you were hoping that they would play him.
I still have Brant Clark on a lot of teams, and I still I tried to be unbiased. The 50th guy on my list might be a little bit biased tonight,
me
but
too.
I don't think that Brant Clark is that big stretch. I already know who your number 50 is. He's an Islanders draft pick. We can just probably talk about that right now. Number 6 on my list is Nikishin.
Nikishin. Oh, taking him right in.
Who you got?
I have Lane there. I got Lane Hudson there.
Oh, you bastard.
Yeah.
You're going to make me pick between those two?
I just think Hudson. So, of course, Nikishin. Well, you know what? Their timeline isn't that far off from each other. I foresee Hudson getting a couple games to start the year, then going down to the A, doing his thing in the A, and getting called up near the end of the season. And Nikishin, by all, I assume that he's coming over at the end of the season and finishing the year with Carolina. So
Oh boy, that would be a tough one. If I had one of them and I was offered the other, I'll say this: in bash leagues, it's not Hudson over Nikishin. It's not. Hudson will get 3 hits a year. He probably isn't getting the same kind of ice time that Nikishin is. In terms of pure offensive upside, it's probably Hudson. But in terms of who's the better all-around defenseman who can actually come in and play top 4 or top 2 minutes, I think it's Nikishin. But Hudson might make up for that by being a 70-point power play special. It's like the guy's ridiculous with the puck. He does have Matheson in front of him, though, and Nikishin doesn't have anything.
Well, he's got Burns in front of him. They signed Walker this year, Brady Shea. So
are you implying that Scott Walker is going to block Nikishin from power play 1? Scott Walker?
Sean Walker?
What did I say? Scott? It's late.
Yeah.
Sean. I'm going to be doing that a lot this year, by the way.
That's all right.
The two kids' brain is crushing.
I'm here.
I don't see Walker blocking anyone from power play.
No.
And Burns wasn't
but
good
there
that
are
long.
good, decent two-way offensive steering defensemen there. And so it's like, not immediately, of course, but I think Nikishin will come in. I don't even know if he would be PP1 next year, to be honest. And that's someone who's a Nikishin holder. I just think they'll let him start the year on power play 2, get his feet wet in the NHL, and make him, steal the job kind of thing. But once Burns kind of fades away, it's his job to take.
Well, Burns' contract is up this year. So when Nikishin gets to Carolina, Burns has about 15 games left on his deal.
Okay.
So and
the wild card in Carolina is Scott Morrow, too. He's a good offensive defenseman, too. So they could run with kind of like what the Ducks are maybe doing with Zellweger and Mintyukov. They could just, with what we foresee Detroit doing with ASP and Sider, where you have a guy who could be power play 1, but they're more beneficial playing a two-way game, power play 2, penalty kill.
If we're talking about opportunity, I would much rather take the guy, if it was a coin toss, I'd much rather take the guy who has to beat out Scott Morrow than the guy who has to beat out Mike Matheson.
Yeah. Sean Morrow. Or Scott. Never mind, I got mixed up here now. Now you got me all mixed up with the Scotts and the Seans.
I will
tried
do
to
that
correct
all
you
year
there.
long. Dude,
No, I tried to correct you there.
I get my kids' names mixed up. Because of the bash factor, which has to be considered, I think Nikishin's ahead of Hudson. I hate to say it. I love Hudson. I love him. I think he's probably the highest upside pure offensive defenseman if everything goes perfectly for him, because I like the situation in Montreal better than LA and Brant Clark. But most leagues have bash now, and Nikishin brings that in spades.
Nikishin has
So
the
I
bomb
think we have
for
to.
sure. He's got the bomb of a shot.
No, I'm talking like hits and
Yeah, I know,
hits and
but
blocks.
I'm thinking like offensive too. So like when you say bash league, like the league that we're in together, it's mixed in, right? So, but you still have guys that don't hit a lot still being more valuable if they're putting up, top 5 offensive numbers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I think that Nikishin is safer because he brings that, like, he'll in a league like ours where a good defenseman's giving you 1.2 points per game. I think Nikishin is good for zero point 0.5, zero point 0.6 points a game just on his blocks and hits. Whereas Hudson, if he doesn't get points that night, you're getting a 0.
Okay.
So if Nikishin is, let's say, a 65 point defenseman and Hudson's an 80-point defenseman, I think Nikishin's probably going to outscore him in those bash leagues because of the hits and blocks, and possibly plus minus. I mean, Carolina's a really good team too, but yeah, for me it's Nikishin just because of the. I mean, I will take the guy who brings multi-cat stuff more often than not, and upside wise, I don't know that Hudson is. Like, is there a 15-point difference between the two of them? Yeah, I'd probably agree with that. But one of them's going to give you 200 hits and 200 blocks. Like, he might come in and be a cider type guy with a better rounded offensive game from the get-go.
Okay. You make good points there. It is a bit safer when it comes to fantasy value, and there are other guys in Montreal that could step up and become and just take the job right away from Lane Hudson too. Yeah.
Well, and that's
Logan
the other thing.
Milieu, Reinbacher, you never know.
And it's been the question with Hudson since the day he was drafted. If he can't play minutes outside of the power play, how long does he last in hockey? Like, he's not. I didn't see a massive jump in his defensive abilities last year, in particular in the World Juniors, but even just in the Frozen Four. Like, he wasn't a shutdown guy.
No.
And he's a guy who's probably not going to win board battles. He's probably going to have a tough time on puck retrievals. There is a chance, like, Nikishin has 0 chance that he's not an NHL defenseman. 0.
Yeah.
Hudson, there's a chance.
There is.
So,
and you saw in the World Juniors when he tried to play a more conservative game, and he had to distribute the puck faster, quicker, and he was still effective and he played well, but he wasn't nearly as electrifying as But those are hard tournaments because you're so afraid of making a mistake in tournaments like that too.
he looked worse last year than he did the year before at the World Juniors. So that's not awesome. That's a little. I agree. It's because he was trying to play a different style of game, but
He's playing number 1 D-man.
that's not.
Right?
It's not his game. Yeah. All right. Let's call it Nikishin at 6. So here we are at number 7. Now, I don't have Hudson until 9. I have Cutter Gauthier at 7.
Yeah, Cutter, eh?
I have Cutter.
I have Cutter at 9.
Oh, we are in a bit of a standoff here. I mean, I'm happy to defer to Hudson. Hudson, yeah. You know what? Because it took us 12 minutes to debate on Hudson versus Nikishin, we're going to put Hudson at 7. At number 8,
I just think of pure upside right there with the guys
Yeah.
left there. It's and there haven't been too many defensemen that we've seen like Lane Hudson, and so if he can come in and translate, his upside is higher than anyone below him at this point.
Yeah, and Cutter's in a crowded top 6 in Anaheim.
Yeah.
Who you
All right.
got at 8 here, pal?
I have.
So I'm saying Cutter.
Yeah. I got Ryan Leonard at this spot.
You have Ryan Leonard.
So similar to
Higher.
Bash League,
Nikishin argument.
Nikishin
Yeah,
argument.
for sure.
The things that might hold Leonard, like we all know what Leonard can do, and he's a great playmaker.
Who is he playing with?
That's the thing, and so it's Washington is, as everyone knows, they're in a standstill right now. They're not rebuilding. We all know they're going for the goal record for Ovi, and so they're going to continue to try to compete, which is fine. Carberry can get a lot out of his players, so they'll be, you know, they'll be right around where they finished last year again this year, and so there's not going to be a lot of like high end prospects to join Ryan Leonard up on this team. So what does he have to surround him around Washington when it comes to young players? You got Connor McMichael, you got Miro Shevchenko. What else we got in the pipeline in Washington? There's not a lot. So I would say that just because of that, Leonard's going to be gifted first line everything when he shows up. And so that's what I really like there, besides the fact that he's not going to have elite talent to play with coming up in a few years. So, and yeah, just well-rounded game. A lot of hits.
I think Leonard is going to be one of the. I've said this for a long time. I generally avoid leaning on rookies to contribute in the first year, 2 years of their career. Leonard's not a guy I would shy away from next year.
Yeah.
To take in a 1-year league, I take him in the later rounds for sure. But he's also a guy I would dress in a dynasty league and count for production from. But I do think his upside for the next 6 years is fairly inhibited due to, like you said, he's not going to be playing with anyone. Like, who's the second most exciting future piece in Washington? Is it Cristal?
McMichael's not bad, but he's a middle six player at best. And Miro Shevchenko, although there's potential there, the skill set's great. It still hasn't come together.
And who's Cutter Gauthier possibly playing with?
Yeah, that's what
Some of the more exciting offensive players in our list, for sure. Last year's list.
Yeah, you look at Anaheim. So their power play is going to be running Zellweger, Minty, and then you'll have Cutter, Leo playing the flank there, and Zegras, McTavish.
Zegras is there. Sinecki is there. That would be my only concern with Cutter is too many cooks in the kitchen. But I do think that
that's what I took
he's fairly
into consideration.
Yeah.
Who was better on Boston College last year? Like it was close.
Between who?
Between Leonard and Cutter.
It was close. Cutter.
Like if you look at the playoffs, like Ryan Leonard
I struggle to see anything other than a 30-30 guy at worst with Cutter.
I think the same with Leonard. I think they're similar, but Leonard will bring a more physical game.
For sure he will. That's not Cutter's game. Again, the issue with Leonard is who's he passing to? Who's passing to him? Whereas Gauthier, I think, could I see if 40 goals is not something that he'll struggle to hit a few times in his career. Leonard, if you swap spots, I probably give it to Leonard. But for the next, like I said, 5-6 years, I don't know. I think he's fairly capped in that he's just not going to have anyone to play with. If McMichael is his center,
for the sake of the list and to just kind of you look at that is the thing that is the problem with him in Washington is that he's going to have to be the leading scorer on that team, and Anaheim, Cutter won't have to be the leading scorer to be a point per game player.
I agree. Let's call it Cutter for this. We're already 35 minutes in and we're on number 8. So we're going to
We
go
knew this was going to be long.
because I'm typing it. We knew this was going to be a long one. All right, at number 9, I have Logan Stankoven.
I had Stankoven underneath Leonard.
There you go. So, it's pretty much the exact same argument. Stankoven's on what I consider to be one of the most stacked offensive teams in the league.
Like this 4-pack
We've already
of
made the
forwards
argument.
with the next guy I have too. To me, they're all like in the same grouping.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah, I'd be inclined.
uh,
Well, tell you what, you gave me Gauthier, so let's go ahead and put Leonard at 9. I'm fine with that.
he will bring
gonna
that
put
physical
Leonard
game
in.
will Stankoven playing in Dallas is nice. And they ain't going anywhere. And
Stankoven hits a lot too. He might not hit as hard. Like I don't think he is the guy who's going to. He's not going to scare guys when he steps on the ice at 5'3", but he does rack up hits and blocks. Like from a fantasy perspective, he hits a lot. But yeah, we'll go with Leonard at 9. We'll go with Stankoven at 10. And your next guy is who?
I got Tej.
You've got Teach.
I got Tej.
You know Zellweger played less than 40 games last
I'm
year,
aware.
right? You've got Iginla ahead of Zellweger?
The thing that's going on in
Sell me.
Anaheim,
Go ahead.
like
Sell me.
I'm not 100% sold that Zellweger's the play one guy. Mintyukov had a great rookie season, has arguably a similar offensive toolbox to Zellweger. Now, it could come down to, well, what value does Zellweger have on the team if he's not power play 1? Where Mintyukov can be power play 2
That's right.
and log extra minutes. So like if you're building the team and you're trying to distribute everything, is the drop off potentially there from Zellweger to Mintyukov, or whichever way you look at it for the power play? Probably safer to put him at the top there with Zellweger. But I just think Tej is going to be stepping into a great situation in Utah.
That's fair. Where do I have Iginla ranked? Oh, he's down the list for me. How much of it is situational for Iginla versus ability? He certainly had a heck of a second half last year.
Oh,
Put himself in the top 10, whereas he was
his under 18 was
fringe first rounder
phenomenal.
at the start of the year.
47 goals as a rookie.
Under 18 was absolutely
Yeah,
phenomenal.
under 18, he lit up the under 18 with McKenna. So, and there's potential of them trying him at center too this year in Kelowna. So, if that clicks,
Don't you think that hurts his value?
I don't think so. I think if Utah could go with Cooley and Iginla as their top 2 centers, they're laughing.
They're both playing on PP1 in that situation, though. As we know, if they're not PP1, they don't make this list, basically.
Oh, I think Tej will be PP1. He's a great goal scorer. So they'll have Keller, Tej, Gunther, Cooley.
Gunther. And no defenseman.
Well,
Jersey.
Sergachev
Sergachev
for now.
or-
Simashev comes over maybe.
I'll say this. I would trade Tej Iginla for Olin Zellweger. Because if Zellweger is PP1, I prefer him. That Anaheim power play is going to be lethal. Zellweger, well, he did not light the league on fire in his 26 games. The year before, here's how I'll pose it like this. Zellweger was number 11 on our list last year. We are currently at number 11 on our list this year. Does Zellweger deserve to drop after the season he had last year? Because he did put up 37 points in 44 AHL games last year. If you ignore the 9 points in 26 NHL games, which ain't bad on a trash team, if he played in the AHL all year and paced for 37 points every 44 games, I think he'd be higher than 11.
Hard to say though. Like really, like, but that's not quite a fair argument too, because you're comparing two different lists. And Tej wasn't, available at that point in time. Did you find Tej at 6 to be a bit of a reach for Utah in this draft?
No, I was fine with that. Did you find Lindstrom at 4 to be a reach?
Well, I'm not a huge Lindstrom.
Or Senecki at 3?
Senecki at 3, yes. I found it to be a bit of a reach.
Is Lindstrom a reach at 4? Because then why aren't we talking about him here?
To be honest, I don't quite see the full upside in Lindstrom in what I've seen.
His injuries would be my answer, and then the team that drafted him. Columbus is, if nothing else, incredibly disappointing to watch their prospects grow. So that would be my answer to that. I take Zellweger here. I have Iginla at 24. So I have Iginla quite a bit lower.
Quite a bit lower.
I have Iginla quite a bit lower than this. I do.
So what forwards do you have above Iginla then that's left?
I have Yurov, Catton, Senecki, Rucker, Lekkermecki, Lindstrom, Snuggerud, Nizar, Musty, Perot. All ahead. Oh, and Savoy, but I'd be willing to put Iginla ahead of Savoy.
Snuggerud over Iginla. There's quite a few that...
Snuggerud, yeah.
Okay, we're at a stalemate here. We didn't figure out how we were going to figure out these stalemates.
Well, we weren't supposed to be this far apart on the top 10, Debert.
Hey, we made our list. This is what we asked for.
We made our list. Well, here's the question to me. If Zellweger is dropping from our list last year, I guess my mentality is for guys to bump ahead of guys who had good seasons, I have to be completely sold on their upside. And I have to have lost some faith in Zellweger. I'm not there. I haven't lost any faith in Zellweger. I completely agree with what you said, that Mintyukov probably more the Scott Niedermayer in this relationship. If Zellweger's on your team and he's not PP1, what are you doing? I agree with that too. I'd sooner dress Tristan Luneau, quite frankly, than Olen Zellweger if he's not playing PP1. So for that reason, I do think Zellweger will be PP1 over time, if not right away this year. And I struggle. I don't have the same faith in Utah's upside as you do. We had this discussion like last month at some point. Cooley, Genther, Iginla, a defenseman, and Keller is not the scariest power play to me. And Anaheim's power play in the future is lethal. So
you add Iginla to that power play, it's pretty scary. That's a pretty nice top 4.
How many of those guys have scored more than 75 points in their career?
Well, Keller, but that's because
you're banking on a lot of guys hitting their potential there.
Yeah, but you can
I guess
say
it's the same argument could be made for Anaheim. No.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing.
Well,
I have Zellweger next on my list. So considering
here is how we figured this out.
You've bumped Smith.
Yep.
You've taken the Nikishin. You've taken the Cutter. I'm taking Tej.
Listen, I'm giving you Iginla,
Tej.
and I'm writing in cap locks beside it. I'm writing Debert's pick.
Yeah.
So when you're doing the graphic for this, just remember to put Debert's pick there. All right, so at 12 we've got Zellweger. We really need to hurry up here. Oh boy, this isn't gonna solve anything. Who you got next, Steve?
I got Zane Perek.
Good for us.
There we go.
That's easy. Right
I need
on.
some sort of like
Right on.
celebration bell.
Right. You know what? I think something we should introduce at some point this season is a soundboard. We should have a soundboard. It's a lot for me to do if I'm being the
sound
the
guy?
typing guy as well. So yeah, you're gonna have to put together a soundboard of some kind. Yeah, Parquet is sky's the limit on that guy. He's a guy I'm trying to get my hands on in almost all my keeper leagues. He has
Perfect.
unblocked access to power play one, albeit on the Flames, but they are just entering a rebuild. They will be adding some top 5 picks to that core.
He's going to be their best
His
player.
offensive upside
He's going to be their best
is
player.
well until they have a top 5 pick next year. So let's pump our brakes. But he will be. They're not going to draft another offensive D man for a while.
I hope they're done with D-men. That's all they've traded for. That's like everything. They've just like traded for D-men, draft D-men. So it's like now you need to focus on getting a center.
You know, as a slight aside, though, I have no issue with
Nope.
that. D-men take longer to develop. If their goal is to be competitive when the rink opens in 2030, draft D-men right now. Absolutely. You should probably take a couple goalies in the next draft too. So, like, do that. The forwards are a lot easier to project. Going heavy D right now, no problem at all. I'm not a Hunter Brewster-Rich believer at all. So, there you have it. We agreed on something, man. I love it. Who you got next? Or should I go with mine? Because we're about to have a fist fight.
Bring it on. What do you got?
I got Daniil
Hey,
Yurov.
hey.
I got Yurov,
2 in a
man.
row.
Are you kidding
Yeah.
me? Look at us.
Totally.
This is, I tell you, folks, listeners, dedicated. I know you guys probably wanted to come see some blood tonight, but we might be hitting a streak here. Yurov has crushed the KHL. Yurov has fairly unblocked access to ice time with Kaprizov. I think that it's in Minnesota's best interest to keep Kaprizov happy until they get him locked up, which probably means playing with his countrymen. And he's coming over at the end of this season. What do you want to throw in here, pal?
Yeah, you hit all the points. It's everything I was looking at. Great year in the K last year. Great skill set. Minnesota's just drooling for him to come over, and you got a spot waiting for him. And hopefully that can help entice Kaprizov sticking around long term.
All those things. All those things. All right, we are at number 15. My nomination for number 15 is Mr. Broken Foot, Beckett Senecki.
Oh, interesting.
Who do you have? Because I'm pretty sure you don't have him here.
I don't. He's not far from here, but I have Lev Shunov here.
Interesting. Why?
I just foresee that he could end up being that top power play guy in Chicago. I know Korchinski's there. It's going to be, I wouldn't say a dogfight for that power play one spot, but whoever gets it's getting the golden paycheck. So it's, but he had an unbelievable year, freshman year, the NCAA, obviously going second overall. So it's, if he gets that, like I know he has the skill set to do it. It's just if Korchinski steals the job from him. He's a great offensive defenseman.
I would say it's the other way around.
Possibly.
Korchinski's value, it's the Zellweger discussion again. Korchinski's value is as an offensive defenseman.
I think he can be a two-way. His skating is good enough that he could be a two-way defenseman too. So he could still fill a decent role playing. And you know what? Who knows what's going on in Rockford? Maybe they're going to be a pairing in Rockford, and maybe that'll be the plan moving forward.
They might very well both start in the A this
But really, like when you got Bedard there, it's like you got to take whoever has the better offensive tool set, and it's up in the air between those two.
I'll give it to you. I mean, I kicked this podcast off by saying I have some guys strictly because of the Bedard potential. I think you gave me Reichel last year for that reason. So this is your turn.
Where did you have Lashuna for curiosity's sake?
20, so not far from here.
Not far, yeah.
But he is my next defenseman on the list. He's just blocked by a few forwards. So I have Senecki next. Oh no, that's not. Yeah, I have Senecki next.
Okay. I had Lekari-Maki.
That's Lek is 2 spots from here for me. Where you got Senecki?
I got Senecki at 19.
All right, I'm gonna say this. Lek at World Juniors was unbelievable. I do think at this time next year, there is a decent chance that Senecki's in the top 5 on our list. Whereas there's no chance Lekari-Maki is. There's no chance. I just don't see that happening. I think he'll probably be around the same spot. Vancouver's power play 1 is fairly entrenched. I don't know that he's probably going to play in the AHL this year. I see Senecki putting up, his injury aside, his second half last year was absurd. His tools are absurd. He's still growing into a frame. He put on, what did he put on, like 5 inches last year? Or like before last season, he grew 5 inches. So he's still figuring out, and you can see it. You can see it when he shoots. He hasn't figured out how to shoot yet, and he's still got a wicked shot. But
that's it's all this stuff is great. It's for Senecki, I feel like he was a top 15 prospect in this draft, no problem. Reaching for him at 3, he had a good playoff, great playoff with Richie there in the O. I don't know. I still just have question marks because he didn't have the best regular season. He was just hovering around a point per game. And
absolutely. Can't deny that.
What'll happen next year? He might have Richie back again next year. I don't think he's AHL eligible.
He's playing with Malone too, isn't he?
Maybe.
Him, Malone, and Richie are going to be the guy's putting up 120 points this year.
Lekari-Maki,
which is again,
but Senecki 3 years away. So he's got this year, year in the A, and then that year there. I just think Lekari-Maki is he's tailor made to be Pettersson's winger in Vancouver. Brock Bozer, who knows what's going on if he's going to re-sign there, but he would take his spot on the power play. And if you got Quinn Hughes and Elias Pettersson and Miller feeding Lekari-Maki with that one-timer, that could be a recipe for a 40-goal scorer.
All right. Well, I have left 2 spots for now, so I'm not gonna argue that. I am going to say when Senecki is top 5 next year, I get the first trump card. So Lek is for you. Senecki goes next for me. And with a capital RYAN beside it. And at 18, I have Catton.
Catton is next up for me too. Yeah.
Oh, look at us, hey? That's beautiful. Some things I really like about him. What he did last year was really impressive in the dub. I like this situation in Seattle. I like that he'll probably be the guy. And they have room for a player like that, a smaller, shifty guy. You can only have 1 or 2 of those kinds of players on your team and be a playoff. Every
team he's played on, he's been the best player. I think that probably will translate to Seattle too. And yeah, he's going to be electrifying. He's exactly what the fans need. He played in Spokane, which is close. So he's going to be lights out when it comes time.
All right. At number 19 on why don't you go? Who's your 19 here?
Well, outside of not like being the hugest fan, I'm not a big hater either, but I got Caden Lindstrom here. It's a little bit lower
Yeah.
on the list than what most people have for prospects. The injuries, that's rough. Even though the guy is built, like he's a specimen, he's still getting injured. So maybe there's something up with the way he's working out. But and then Columbus is just Columbus, right?
Yep.
So
Well, and he's number 2, right? Like that's the other thing is like he's not better than Adam Fantilli. So he won't be line 1. He'll probably be PP1, but he won't be line 1. He won't get the cream of the crop as far as wingers go. And due to a horrific summer, Columbus has 0 wingers. Like they have Gavin Brindley coming. Who's Lindstrom playing with on line 2?
I don't know. He might
I'll
be
say
better off
this.
to play wing and just load up that top line. And so
Yeah, for his fantasy owners, he certainly would be. Here's where I'm at with Lindstrom. There are guys that we are going to list coming up who I probably wouldn't trade for Caden Lindstrom at this point. And ultimately, that's how I've always approached these lists. And you and I discussed this going into the show. We discussed it last year. For me, these lists are always about I'm a flipper. I trade. I'm a 50 trades a year kind of guy. There are guys I target. I wait for them to gain value, and then I flip them for a guy I never could have got the original player for. There's a lot of guys who we would have beneath Lindstrom at this point who I wouldn't trade for Lindstrom right now. Number 1 being the guy who I have in this spot, and that's Rucker McGroarty. I'd take McGroarty over Lindstrom right now. McGroarty's about to play with Sid. McGroarty is Kunitz on steroids. He is exactly what Sid needs to play with. He's going to hit the league running. Obviously, that's why he got traded to Pittsburgh. He's going to be an impact player immediately, pretty darn close to immediately. He's going to come in with a chip on his shoulder. I don't know that Rucker McGroarty is necessarily a better long-term player than Caden Lindstrom, but I do know that Rucker is going to be worth more than he will for the next 2 years minimum.
yeah, that is for sure. Because Caden's probably not playing the NHL for 3 seasons, and so yeah, you have him there. And don't get me wrong, I could be talked out of Caden Lindstrom here. I actually put him up there
I believe that.
begrudgingly because I didn't want my own bias to just be to put a guy lower than what other pundits and like people that are like professional scouts have him up high.
Yeah, man, screw the other pundits though. Saleyev ain't cracking this top 50, and he showed up in some weird places on some very highly regarded publications lately.
The thing I have with Lindstrom's game is his skating style very upright. So it's like it seemed kind of choppy, and a lot of his goals were in tight around the net. The wrist shot, it looked like he was scoring from distance. I question the WHL right now at this point in time with high-end scorers. Playing with Gavin McKenna, how much did that inflate his stats? How much will it inflate his stats? And the injury. It's just a lot of stuff that I was just like, I would not have taken him at number 4 if I was Columbus. They should have taken...
You missed a big one.
They should have taken Demidov 100%. So...
Yeah, you missed a big one too. And that is it's something you and I, I'm sure we discussed it on the show. I'm sure that we've talked about it a lot in our leagues. When I am unsure of who to take, I will often lean on a scouting staff. If Anaheim drafts a defenseman, I believe that defenseman is going to be something. I do not have a ton of faith in Columbus's scouting program. Players of note that they have drafted in the last, let's say, 4 years, and I'm doing this off the top of my head, but Fantilli was a no-brainer. Brindley was a home run. Looks to be a home run. Jiricek took the AHL by storm. That weird shit happened with him and the GM last year where they didn't seem to be seeing eye to eye. But who's the 4th best player they've drafted in the last 4 or 5 years?
Well, Matejchuk's good. He's a really good.
Matejchuk is
really good offensive defenseman. I would actually have him above your check in the depth chart for fantasy value, for offensive fantasy value. But yeah, you're right. Like it's just I don't know if it's necessarily drafting because all these guys look great when they draft them. It's there's just got to be something in the development, and we're seeing
Drafting and
and we're
development.
seeing it
Yeah.
with with this turnover there. Uh, see what Don Waddell can do there, but honestly, like Columbus is going to be a hard place to play hockey for the next few years. Like those guys are not going to
Yeah, it
have a
is.
lot of fun at the rink. So, they're not a
For
good
the
team.
sake of the
Yeah.
show, yeah. For the sake of the show, Rucker at 19, Lindstrom at 20.
The problem I have with Rucker, I'll give it to you, but the problem I have with Rucker is, like you said, when Sid starts to fall off, he's going to be 40 in 3 years here. So, um, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I believe that. I remember watching him as a 16-year-old in the cube,
Let's not do that. We don't have to do
but
that.
in 3 years, like, what else is there for Rutger to play with? Like,
I would
really,
I
there's
would
nothing.
agree, but I would say that Rucker and Leonard are similar styles. So if Leonard were going to put it 10, Rucker doesn't have
Let
much going for him in three
similar
years
styles,
either.
but
Leonard doesn't have much
Leonard
now.
Leonard has much better pedigree than Rutger does.
In the sense that,
Offensive ability.
do you
Oh
think
yeah,
so? I think Leonard's passing game is better. I
his
think his
hands are
goal
better.
scores, they might,
Hands are way better too.
like,
Hockey
more than
sense,
10 spots
the
better.
whole nine. Yeah.
Hold on one second here. We're going to bring up some
Oh, here we
numbers.
go. Now, Rutger, did he play
Rutger.
with Fantilli when he had his Hobie Baker season? And Hughes
Rucker
and
had 52 points in 36 games last year. Ryan Leonard, playing on the best line in college hockey, had 60 and 41. So not all that far off from each other. Who would you rather have here then, out of curiosity?
like I said, I'll give
At
you
19.
Rutger on that one. I've always kind of seen him as a second fiddle type of guy. I could be wrong. So, but he'll be second fiddle with Sid. It's but these rookie seasons, like, is he going to be getting power play one? Like when Sid and Malkin and Letang and Carlson are all gone, he's got no one to play with, and he's a winger. Like,
That's fair. I think that once he's on his own, 70 points is probably a realistic cap for him for a while until Pittsburgh really bottoms out. I just so
now,
the next
having
guy
said that,
I would be
there's not
putting.
much below there that is like
Yes,
surefire. Like we're not looking at
no,
many surefires.
I
We're
agree.
looking at some what ifs. So
Yeah, I mean the next forward for me after that is Snuggerud. So um,
mhm.
I think Snuggerud will score more goals for sure. He's got a better long-term situation. They're probably pretty close. Rucker and Snuggerud are probably pretty close for me. Um, Over the next 3 years, it's Rucker. After that, it's Snuggerud. And then the next guy on my list would be Musty. So that's a group of guys where, again, if my bar is, do I trade these guys one for each other? I'd be happy to have any of those three on my team. It's Rucker now. It's probably not Rucker in 3 years. So maybe Rucker isn't 19. Maybe 19 is, what do you think? Which one of those guys do you have higher, and who do you have next?
Well, outside of Lindstrom, my next guy up is Frank Nazar.
You son of a bitch. That's, yeah. We'll put Nazar.
Who else is playing with Bedard?
Yeah. No, listen, Nazar was 21 on my list, and we're 19.
Like,
So yeah, I got no
by the end of
issues with
this,
that. So we're gonna
he
go.
clicks with Bedard. We look back on this list and he should have been top 8 or whatever.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and based a lot on World Juniors where he adapted his game. Him and Brindley really to this day stood out for me so huge. They were perfect complementary players. I loved everything they did. Nazar in particular was a great
And
distributor.
he's a great penalty killer too.
I do think that I do think that in a couple of years, they'll have more picks coming. They'll have Kanserov coming, who I really like. They drafted that Van Acker is a guy who I think plays a similar game to Nazar in terms of great number 2 on the line. But for now, yeah, I'm more than happy to put Nazar at 19. And quite frankly, he could shoot as high as I could have him above Lecker-Mecki at this point. So 19 works for me. We'll do Lidstrom at 20. So my pick for 21 would be one of Rutger, Snuggerud, or Musty. Who you got here?
Well, I got one of your guys, actually. One of you guys you really like. I got Zeev by him up next.
Oh, I love
I know.
Zeev. Yeah, that's.
I know. I see a similar
Zeev
thing
is-
to, like we've talked about a few times, the Mintyukov Zellweger. It's like Zeev comes in, Faber, he's a team guy. He's not, and he's got his contract, so it's fine. And put him as more defensive role. It fits like a glove.
Yeah, I like Zeev a lot.
And then everyone else we're looking at
they're all-
after that is potentially complementary guys that will have to fight for that power play 1 slot.
Yeah, I agree. I'm happy to put Zeev here for the reasons you listed. He's sort of, I think that he is going to be a better power play player than Faber. I like Faber. I love his two-way game. I'm not 100% sold that he's necessarily a 60, 70 point D-man going forward. I'm ready to be surprised, but it's not something that I'm necessarily 100% sold on. So I'm happy to put Zeev there. In our next spot, then, I love Byam. Like, that trade that Philly made was insanity considering their system. Did you hear the rationale there?
No.
You hear what Briere said about why they traded down there?
Why is that?
He said, we have similar players to Zeev Byam in Cam York and Emile Andre. Emile Andre, he compared or said, we already have a Zeev Byam in this player. Insane.
Cam York, I'll give you, because
how long
then you're deeming him almost like you're killing his value on your team. And if you like, what's his name? Luchenko? What's the guy?
Yeah, Jet.
Yeah, Luchenko. Okay, I had it right. I thought that was one where you're just sitting there. You know what this reminded me of? When Cole Caulfield was falling in the draft. And guess who passed on him? For Cam York.
Yeah, totally. It was the
Cam
exact
York's
same
blocked
situation
them
reversed.
from better players twice now.
Yeah. Wild. All right, so we got Zeev at 21. 22, can we now talk about these forwards, or you got any other big swings to throw at me here?
My next guy up. So we had, I'm doing a list here too as we go. So we had Lidstrom at 20.
Yep.
Okay.
Zeev at 21. We're at 22.
So my next guy up would have been Yuri Kulich.
Yuri Kulich. Why? Can you stop throwing my guys at me in
You're a good
method
scout,
to
man.
block the guys I want to
Good
put
scout.
here?
What can I say?
Okay, no. The answer is no.
You putting your foot
I'm
down.
sorry.
Okay, explain to me
Coolidge
why.
can't be ahead of.
Ahead of who?
He can't be ahead. Okay, specifically, I think Coolidge is a similar player to Snuggerud. I think he's a. I think that Rucker probably should be higher. I cannot justify putting Coolidge ahead of Musty.
You cannot.
I can't. No, Musty's gonna play with Celebrini, and Coolidge is competing with one of the deepest and youngest wing cores in the NHL.
That's true.
So strictly from a risk perspective, I do think if you swap teams, Coolidge is in the top 15 for me.
Huh.
But he's not. He's on Buffalo. And Buffalo is way too stacked. I'm a huge Peterka fan. Peterka is going to be on power play one, line one this year, and I don't see that going away. On the second, you got Zach Benson is there. You've got Jack Quinn is there. You've still got Tuck there, who does something that none of the prospects do. I love Coolidge as a player. Situationally, it's a risk. He's a risky player, and there's a lot of guys who their situations are so much better than his. It's one of those cream rises to the top situations, and I believe that to be true. But there's a lot of cream in Buffalo. They call it Buffalo cream at this point. Like there's just so, yeah. It's they've dubbed it the Buffalo cream. It's and there's so much of it. They got the full fat, they got the low fat, they got the whipped cream, they got the cream cheese. It's insane how much talent they have on the wings. And
Ruff's just gonna have a bunch of cream on his hands. There.
He's gonna the Coolidge cream might not be enough to beat the Quinn cream, the Peterka cream, the Benson cream.
Yeah,
I don't know,
Benson
man. Like which of those guys is
so
Coolidge?
If you look at and we always talk about power play, of course, but if you look at that umbrella, where does Coolidge primarily, where does he do his damage? I know, but at the position where they had Bo and Byram playing last year. So they had Dahlin running the top, Byram playing the right side, playing the dry side spot on the power play. And Byram, he would just rover around, do his thing. But that's where Coolidge does all of his damage from that spot.
That's also where Peterka lives. Tage isn't moving from the other side. And Jack Quinn is still a 40-goal scorer in the right situation. Like that's the issue I have with Coolidge is I'm not ready to anoint him as a top 3 forward on that team, let alone top 2 or he's probably closer to 5.
This is where these fantasy lists are hard because if you take player to player from this point forward, I like Coolidge's skill set right now. Like what he's able to do in the AHL at a 19, 20-year-old 2 times. He was good at the World Juniors. But I hear you. I'm with you. And it's, I put him in there because I put him in there because I felt like he should go there at this point. But yeah, it's one of those things when someone reinforces to you again that it's Buffalo, man. You can't bank on any of them, really. Even Zach Benson, who's probably to me their most offensively gifted forward outside of Tage. You don't even know if he's going to get power play one time.
Agreed. So we're gonna say Musty,
and I love Musty. I got him, and so he's
I know you love Musty. This is a little bit of a fluff in that regard because I'm not going to lose this argument to you. It's so tough for Coolidge. Any other team in the league, he's higher on this list than he will be. I have Coolidge at 29. And honestly, that's probably too high. And I say that simply because Buffalo need to make a trade or two, man. There's too many guys who absolutely deserve a better shot than they're going to get in Buffalo.
They made such a mistake by doing almost a 1-for-1 Savoy for McLeod. They should have packaged 2 or 3 of them together and got a much better player.
Yep.
Such
I
a mistake.
fully
McLeod
agree.
is like good player, but he's a bottom 6 center, good penalty killer, but
Yeah, he at best he's a slightly above average 3C who won't bring much offense. Having said that, I see what they're doing, and it's one of the reasons I'm really down on Benson this year is because I think Benson and McLeod are going to be a dynamite shutdown tandem. But like that does nothing for me as a Benson owner. But they will be very, very good together. I do think that they'll both have better years than last year on the third line against top competition, which is just not that like I'm not buying anyone in that slot. Maybe Benson moves up to line 2, but like really like Quinn and Cousins, they're not going anywhere. They're gonna be on line 2. And at that point it's do you want to roll a top 9 or a top 6?
well, and they got what's his name? Greenway. Is it Greenway? The big guy.
Greenway's there. He's probably
on that line too,
He's a
right?
guy who can play up,
But he's going to be on that line too. So like
it's
Benson's going to be stuck playing with, McLeod and Greenway.
yeah, it's not good. They do have Rosen, who had a good AHL
Where's he
year.
going to play?
Like maybe you end up with a Kulich on that third line. Kind of defeats the purpose of it being shut down, though. Maybe Kulich ends up on the second line. Like that makes more sense to me.
Such
but
a conundrum.
I just
you look at that prospect list and like we should be good. It's like but we don't have any spots for them. What are we going to do?
Dude, it's EA is what it is. They've got the wrong mix of guys. They've got like the absolute wrong mix of guys. They've got snipers, man. They have but they're all the same skill. Like that's the thing is like who's the best playmaker on Buffalo? Who's the best board guy on Buffalo if it's not Tuck? Like they have Tage, who's a 50 goal guy. They have Kulich, one of the best teenage goal scorers in the AHL. They have Quinn, lights out, and he is going to light it up this year. Like he's going to go nuts. But they're all shooters. Like they don't have much in the way of puck distributors. Paterka is a guy who could easily score 30 goals this year. Who's distributing the puck on that team? So it ain't Kulich for me right now. It is Musty. We spent a lot of time on this. Next on my list, then still, I'm behind on Rutger. I had Rutger at 16, and I had Snuggerud at 18. Tell me why I'm wrong, or tell me why I'm right. For 23.
Next guy up, I have on my list. So I had Musty after Kulich, so it was right. Bang bang. I have
good for us.
Before right around the trade deadline, he wouldn't have been here. He would have been near the bottom half. Matthew Savoy. So,
son of a bitch.
Really, like Edmonton is going to be desperate for entry level contracts. They need skilled forwards. They got Jeff Skinner holding his spot for this season. He's useless if he's not playing top 6. What's top 6 in Edmonton for the next 8, 9, 10 years? Unless he flops. If he flops, then of course. But if he is a good NHL player, he's playing with Draisaitl and McDavid. Now, on the flip side, he's not a power.
Is he playing on the power play?
He's probably not on the power play. So...
yeah, so for that reason alone, I think Snuggerud is probably ahead of Savoy for me. I think Snuggerud is exactly what the St. Louis power play needs. He's the Lekkermecki. Like him and Lekkermecki were both the best shooters at the World Juniors type. Like they both went bar down twice. They were both scoring at will. Was it this year or last year? Snuggy had that 4-goal game. Like it's
this
like
year, but he went ice cold to finish the season too. Don't forget. I do not know why he went back to college for one more season.
I don't get it.
Spot waiting for him unless St. Louis was saying you got to make the team, which is fine. But I don't know. Maybe unfinished business. College life's got to be fun. But Here, I'll let you talk about Snuggie and how much you love him. I'll be right back. I'm just gonna take a whiz.
You're not. You're actually gonna go to the bathroom this time, hey? I'm not gonna talk about any of those things. To our more dedicated listeners, there was an episode last year where I was sure that I heard someone taking a piss while we were recording. And before this episode, Evan confessed to me that I busted him peeing in a bottle. Disgusting, this guy. Can you believe that? He was pissing in a bottle while we were recording an episode. So that's why I think Snuggerud is probably the pick here. But I'm gonna go with Rutger. I'm gonna take Rutger here. Oh, he's back.
Talking.
Deaver, you missed it. We're not even a little bit, man. You don't listen to these episodes, do you?
Yeah, of course.
We're going with Rutger at 24. We are going with. Sorry, I'm just making some notes here.
Okay, who do we have? So
we're going to go with Rutger
after Seneke, who do we have? My list is off.
Seneke was 17, Catton was 18, Nazar was 19, Caden Lindstrom was 20, Zeev, or as I call him, Zaboom, was 21, Musty 22, Rutger 23, and we are sitting at 24 right now, debating between, you missed this while you were away using the bathroom, Snuggerud, and next on my list would be Perot, and right after that, I also have Savoy. So, for me personally, that list is probably Snuggerud, Savoy, Perot. A lot being opportunity. I don't like Rangers prospects in general. The Rangers are going to be riding their old guys into the ground. That's how I see it. I think Snuggerud, Savoy, Perot is probably the next three for me, because after that is Aginla and then Zeev.
Cool.
So we've already done them.
Hey, that was my.
You're okay with that?
I had it in pretty much that order. I had Dvorsky ahead of Snuggerud. But
Dvorsky, we haven't talked about him yet, but we are going Snuggerud, Savoy, for all the reasons you listed. Savoy is power play 1 as Hyman or Nuge decline, but like we've got 2 or 3 years before that happens. I do like, he's a righty, right?
Yes, I believe so.
I think I remember. So funny story for our listeners. Funny, it's not that funny. Debert came to visit me this summer. Good guy. He's a heck of a handyman, and he's an excellent floorer. He came here to handle some general around the house stuff and do some floors for me. And at one point while he was here, I decided to take a nap. And he was doing the floor in my room. So I crawled into my 4-year-old's bed while he was at daycare. And I closed my eyes and I tried to sleep. And I don't know if you guys have this. You probably do. I will often check my places, Twitter, Reddit, whatever. Just before falling asleep, I'll just refresh the hockey page. And I was half asleep and I refreshed the hockey page. And at the top of my feed was Ryan McLeod for Matt Savoy. And Debert, do you want to go ahead and just explain what that looked like from your perspective as I came crashing through the door?
I think it's probably pretty close to people's reaction when Publishers Clearinghouse would show up at their door with the big check for $1 million, and it's just like it's like he won the lottery. He wouldn't shut up. His wife was even like, "Okay, all right, I get it." Like he's like, "No, you have to understand this guy." He's like,
she doesn't get it. She does not get it.
No, she does. Nor does she pretend to.
She doesn't get it.
Sometimes just to get you to shut up. And so,
she knows better. I still feel the same way about the trade. It was an absolute home run, and I couldn't be happier with it. I do think there might be, we talked about it, I think today, didn't we? How it was. Savoy's probably going to start in the AHL. You called it the Stankoven treatment. He'll probably start in the AHL. I agree with that. If he performs, we'll probably see him as the first call up, certainly in the top 9. and then it's up to him, and we'll see what he does. We are at the 1 hour and 25-minute mark. We are at number 26 on our list. That seems like as good a place as any to go ahead and call that part one of our show. Thanks so much for listening. We are going to hit you up with part two. And honestly, and unfortunately, in a lot of ways, I do think this is going to be the slow part of it, because 40 to 50 is always a total cluster of bias, ridiculous opinions, and sometimes maybe trying to inflate our own players' value. We try not to do that, but I'm sure it comes in. So that's our part one of our Puck Dynasty top 50 prospects for 24-25. Thanks for listening. We missed you guys. I'm sure you missed us terribly. And I hope you enjoyed all elements of our show, both when Debert and I were both here, and maybe in particular when he wasn't. So we'll see you soon for part two.
Happy hockey season, everybody.
Happy hockey season, everybody.